Okay, we got a request to demonstrate the starting of some of the old trucks here in the Sandbox. So we aren't going to be starting the cab over that's behind me because it ain't ready to go yet, but we'll go around and we'll start up some of the other vehicles and show you what we do to get them running. And you could call them cold starts, but in this warm weather they're kind of warm starts. But we'll show you the procedure and explain to you why we do what we do to get them to start them up with the old carburetors and manual chokes and stuff like that. Okay, here's the 60 Chev 60. It's not a Viking, it's just a 60. So with this one, carburetor needs a little work on it. So what we have to do with it is we got our priming bottle here, gas in a bottle, which if somebody's dumb enough to drink it, I guess they'll drink it. But we'll give her a little drink down the top of the air filter here. It's an oil bath air filter. We can explain how those work sometime if people want to know. And hook up the cable here and see if this one's gonna go for us. There, we'll see if that's got enough connection. So we'll get our key out for this one. And the procedure on this is gas pedal down, choke out, and then once she starts, we shove the choke in about halfway. We're keeping a little bit of throttle on just to keep her running. You want the choke in about halfway. You do the same thing if you had an automatic choke. It would there's a vacuum pod on the side of the carburetor that as soon as the vacuum comes up, it pulls the choke halfway open, and then as the choke heats up, whether it's exhaust heated or electric heated, then the bimetal spring unwinds and pulls the choke the rest of the way open. But on this we have the choke cable, so we shove it in halfway because there is no choke pull off, and that gives us the same effect. And then we'll let her idle here. We got her foot off the gas, and then as it warms up, you just shove the choke in a little bit, and you can hear she's running a little rough there. That's as far as you want to go. Make sure you always make sure you're in neutral, side to side with the shifter before you take your foot off the clutch every time, so you don't run into or over things you don't want to. And we'll just let her run here a bit with the choke on. And this is why they went to fuel injection. It was not for efficiency or effectiveness, it was to eliminate having to run the engine extra rich, although the fuel injection does it without you knowing it until the engine warms up and goes into what's called open loop, that starts reading off the sensors and correcting the fuel mixture as you go. With the choke, you do it by hand. The advantage of the choke is that if you're going to get out and get driving, once you're revved up, you can turn the choke off really soon, where with a fuel injection it's purely dependent on engine temperature before the mixture leans out. So but if you get your choke in too far when you go to, and the accelerator pump doesn't work on this carburetor right now until we clean it, so you have to kind of jazz the throttle to get it to rev up. But anyways, you can hear she's not running. We let her idle, she's not liking that, so start her back up here. Or maybe we will. Without an accelerator pump, it can be a little, we might be out of gas. But anyways, we ain't going to worry about that right now. There's no need to burn gas anymore, but that's what you do until the choke's all the way in. As it warms up and smooths out, you can just keep working the choke in. So that's how that one works. And then we'll go over here and we'll unhook the battery. And that's what happens if you get the choke in too soon and you don't have an accelerator pump as the engine dies. Now we could dump a little gas in the top of her and she'd fire up again, but one of these days we'll pull the carburetor off and clean it, show you how to do that. So that's the 60 series, Chev 1960 60 series. How's about that? So now we'll go over and fire up the middle toe. Okay, so here we are at the International tow truck, known as the middle toe. First thing you do when you get in, you get the clutch down, and then Internationals always have a key on this side. Most other vehicles you got the key on the right hand side and the choke on the left hand side, but with Internationals they do it the other way around. So now what we're going to do is push the gas pedal down, pull the choke out all the way, give her an extra pump to get a little bit, squirt a little bit more gas in. Then she doesn't like that much choke right off the bat. So she almost flooded herself with the choke out because we were trying to hold the camera, we didn't have our hand on the choke like we should have, but it's a little tricky on this one to do her. So we got the choke in, as you can see she's in about halfway there. So make sure she's in neutral, put off the clutch. This one runs quite often, so she's a pretty good starter. Now that's 2 pumps and it goes, and of course today is probably about close to 20 degrees Celsius. So what's that? Getting up around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So usually 1 or 2 pumps, most of the old carburetor stuff will start. Now you get down into the under the freezing mark, you might have to pump it 6 or 8 or 10 times. You start out with 2 or 3 pumps, and if it doesn't fire, then you give it 1 or 2 more, and then you try it, and if it doesn't fire, you give it 1 or 2 more, and pumping it while you're cranking it. A lot of people do that. I was always told that's never the right way to do it, because you can easily flood the engine because you're not keeping track of how much fuel you're putting in. You're just hoping she catches before she floods. And so if you keep track of how many pumps and then crank, you're less likely to flood it and then have to clean plugs and maybe oil the cylinders and a bunch of other stuff that goes along with carbureted engines when you pump too much gas into them. So now we'll shove the choke in a little bit more. She's running smooth. And we'll just keep working our way in with the choke. Choke's all the way in. This one, she's a pretty good runner, this one. That might be a little too soon, but I think she's going to take it. Yeah, so she's idling along there pretty good. No real problems. So I always like to let them run a minute or 2 with the choke off if I can, just to let them clear out, so when I go to start them next time they aren't partially flooded or something. So that's the starting of the old International with the 304 in her. Okay, now we're at the 7140 Econoline that we did the first start on the other day. I don't know how much gas is left in her, but we'll see. Now this one, the carburetor has a automatic choke, but it's not hooked up, so we're going to have to run her on the accelerator pump, because every time you pump a carburetor it squirts gas in if it's working correctly. And so you can compensate for not having choke by manually pumping raw gas into the carburetor until she's warm enough to run. So we have to turn the ignition switch on here. We'll see if we can do it with this old key. Tom's complaining about something. I don't know if we can do that or not. I know we've got a funky camera angle going on here. We may have to go go get a screwdriver. No, I think we might have her there. Okay, so we'll give her 2 pumps. And we got this button hooked up to the solenoid because the solenoid is not wanting to work off the key. And she fires right up nicely. So what we're going to do is just keep her revved up a little bit here. And when she dies down like that, we give her a couple of shots and try to catch it before it stalls. So this, that surgeon is just, you can see what I'm doing on the gas pedal there. I'm just running the accelerator pump and pumping a little bit of raw fuel into the carburetor. So keep her running. If we keep her revved up more, then it compensates as well. If this was really cold weather, we'd be having a lot harder time keeping her running, but you just got to keep her rich enough until the engine gets hot. It's basically like a wood stove. You have to have the chimney hot for it to draw good, and an engine's the same way. You got to have her hot and the exhaust hot so that she'll draw, and then she'll idle on her own. But a cold engine's the same as a cold wood stove. The smoke won't go in the right direction. She won't draw right. So once she's warmed up and everything, the heat's going in the right direction, the airflow is going in the right direction, she'll draw her own air through and run much more efficiently. So that's how you start a carburetor with no choke. And now she's holding not bad. I'm holding on a bit of a high idle. If I let her down, she'll probably die on us, but that's how you do that one. We'll just see here. She's only been running a little bit, but it's fairly warm out today, so yeah, I guess she's going to idle on her own there. You can hear the air sucking through that carburetor. She's a noisy one. And sounds like she got a bad vacuum leak somewhere, but it's just the noise of the air going through by the throttle plates. So she must have a fairly high vacuum on her. But anyways, so that's the 71 302 that is probably going to end up going in the Comet, because we're not keeping this motorhome as a project, that's for sure. So that's how some of these trucks start. We might go over and play with the Comet again here just to see if we can get her going, but it might be out of gas actually, but it takes spells. The timing chain's really bad on it, and I think it's walking out of time sometimes. So anyways, that's some cold starts for you. Okay, seeing as how we're doing first starts, let's see how the old cockshut 40 will perform here. It hasn't been started since last July when we had her in the fair and the slow tractor races, and we parked her, and she's sat here ever since. So we just put a battery in her, and we'll see what happens. She's usually a pretty good runner. So now we got the clutch here. We'll get that in. Make sure we're in neutral. Throttle's a little funky on this one, and pull the choke out, turn the key on, and that's what she does every time. Running right along. I did a little tuning up on her, rebuilt the carburetor and all the fun stuff there a couple of years ago, and she's been a good performer ever since. Some more work mechanically, but engine wise she's definitely a good starter. We might put the loader back on. She's got the loader mount there. We got the loader over across the yard. We might put that back on this summer. It looks like all the fairs were canceled this year, so we'll play with it some around the yard here. We need something to lift up around. The pole truck is handy, but sometimes the loader's handy too. Anyways, that's what she does. It's all good. And this one you pretty much can turn the choke off right away as soon as she starts. she'll run right along. She's charging a little bit here. See that? Got a little bit of oil pressure. So that's Cockshuck 40 going for you.